everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of The Best You, a coaching podcast. It's Gary here again, and I'd once again like to take this opportunity to thank you very, very much for joining me for this episode, and I do hope that you're all doing great and investing in whatever work it is that you've committed to getting you closer to being the best version of you. So I guess we're weather-wise, quick weather report here. We're most certainly into the spring season now, and literally and figuratively for the year. And it just seems for me to bring just a real air of optimism, good spirits, and overall good cheer. And I hope I'm not alone in that. I hope you're starting to feel some of the benefits, depending on where you are in the world and what season you're enjoying or enduring, as maybe it might be. And partly I think it's because we've got a full quarter now to reflect on, and which we'll get to that in a wee bit here, and partly because we also have plenty of time left in the year to do something about the information and data that we've gathered based on our progress to date for the year thus far. And it just kind of bodes the opportunity to ask yourself some questions. Are you on target? Assume that you had some targets set in place previously. Are you on target? Are you behind target? How do you feel overall about where you are thus far this year? Rolling through the various facets of the journey that is life. And that's the really, really cool thing for me, is these data points act as literal reflection points, and they can be so valuable in terms of learning opportunities of how we're doing, what we're doing, how is it going, how do we feel about it, as I said, and that allows you just to kind of dig a little bit further into the whys and the hows and such. So real good reflection opportunity to use, moving from the spring into the kind of summertime. So if you're not using your time for that, I would absolutely recommend that you do that you use that opportunity, and even pause this podcast right now and stop and say, where am I at right now? Where did I think I was going to be by now? How does that measure up? Is there a delta between both of those? If so, why? And if that's the case, what am I going to do about it? And see what comes up for you. And as I always say, get in touch. I'd love to hear a bit more about your journey. So what you can expect on this episode, we're going to work through a recent blog that I published last week there on clearly defining things, topics, subjects, concepts and such, and the art of clear definition, and of course the benefits that you can get from the ability to be able to define clearly. But before all of that, I'll give you a wee idea of how things are shaping up for me. I think I mentioned the last couple of times that I would go through this section quickly, because I don't want to bore anyone with that, here's what I've been doing, but just almost like I said on the introduction part there, this is not an opportunity for me to show off, because literally I have no idea who's listening and whether you would be impressed or not, to be fair. But it's primarily to hold myself to account, quite honestly, and to build on what I shared last time, and to give myself that somewhat forced reflection, I guess, not forced in a negative sense, but that opportunity to sit down and say you're going to do this reflection prior to recording this podcast, so that you can reflect on your own and maybe give other people an opportunity to pause and reflect at the same time. It gives me a little bit of an opportunity to qualify what I'm doing and to quantify where things are at a given point in time. And everything I do, from my pods and blogs and regular postings on LinkedIn, which is my preferred social media platform, are all absolutely designed to both edutain, which is my favourite word, and encourage you to consider doing the same for you. And so once again, can I ask, are you actually doing anything about it? Do you take notes? Do you share what you've learned? Do you take any action from what I'm sharing? Because that's the whole point of the journey, I think. And I suspect that if you're listening to this podcast, you already have a passion for growth, your own growth, self-development and such. And I truly encourage you to take at least one action after every single pod that you listen, every single pod of mine that you listen to, and then see where it takes you. You know, it's baby steps, one at a time, and I guarantee you'll be in a better spot for it going forward. So while I do want to cut out the let me tell you a little bit about me so as not to bore you, I also want to gain the dual purpose and dual benefit from that, if that makes sense, and hopefully it does. So to the point, Gary, what have I been up to since we last chatted? So like before, I always start this section with just giving you an idea that I am continuing my core passion, of course, and the whole reason I took the change to becoming a coach is to actually coach, and it's going to be the heartbeat of everything that I do going forward. It's going well, still getting to be engaged with the clients as I go forward, and helping support them through their ongoing journey, and I just love it. I really do. The journaling that I've mentioned before is still going well. I do the journaling daily, and I find that really helps. And I think, I don't know if I talked about this before or not, but I considered becoming a certified high performance coach, and that was through Brendan Burchard's Growth Day community that he has, and I subscribe to that. That's where I actually do my journaling in the app, and I don't want to be one of these guys who's like a certification hog, where I'm just going after this qualification, that qualification, this certification, that certification. It's not my style. It's not really my jam. And so I did some investigation on their offering of the certified high performance coach, and I do absolutely every single day want to learn. I want to grow, and for every dollar that I spend, literally, I want to be able to provide that value 100-fold back to you, to my community, to the clients that I'm serving. So all of that to say, I decided against doing the high performance coach. I think the curriculum looks really good, the delivery method looks good, and the support that you have after certification looks great, but it's just, for right now, the timing literally didn't work out in terms of some family commitments that I have for this particular cohort, so I'm not completely closing the door on it. But I want to just kind of pay my dues, or continue to pay my dues a little bit more, and in terms of my growth into this career that is coaching, and see what I actually need to take me to the next level in my ability to serve. So yeah, took a bit of a pause on that, and the reason I mention that is that I just went on that journey, and it took a bit of time to actually get to that spot, and a few conversations, of course, as well. I also had my mastermind number 2, and the mastermind is a collection of me and another 2 business owners here from the Calgary area, and we've been friends for a long time, and we get together. This is, as I mentioned, is number 2. The first one was essentially setting the stage back in January, and we got together, and we've got already predefined topics. We're holding each other to account. We're having some really open and candid dialogue, and then we have demonstrable action items that comes out of that. And just even with it being number 2, I honestly, folks, feel like we're really building some momentum here, and I would encourage you, if you haven't ever even thought about it before, to think of setting your own up. Who do you feel that you could learn from? Who do you feel that could learn from you? What sort of group dynamic are you trying to create, and getting together, and then just going through the list of items that you've progressed, and ours is quarterly for right now, so in the 3 months that we've had to get together. And so what we did was, that's actually one of the major items that we started with. And me being a recovering project manager, I like a list every now and again, as much as the next man. And so I went down my list of, this is what's happened in the 3 months, and I had my PCC designation from the International Coaching Federation. I had my core leadership dynamics from IPEC. I had new clients onboarded. I published 7 blogs. I broadcast 6 pods. I completed 3 business books. 1 is in progress right now. I completed 2 personal books, just for fun and entertainment, and 1 is in progress right now. I do my weekly North American Rangers podcasts, and we have a convention coming up in Kissimmee next year, Kissimmee, Florida. So we've been doing a whole bunch of planning and signing documents and negotiating as such. And so a bunch of things like that. And I play football, soccer to other people, and we've got a season that's just ended for indoor. We're organising our season ender party, getting organised for the outdoor season. Continued, of course, with my own self-development, my own keep fit routine, which includes yoga and running and meditation and such, and also squeezed in a wee bit of time to go and surprise a good friend of mine for his 50th birthday down in California. See, when you get the opportunity to sit down and list the work that you're actually doing, the work that you've accomplished, the work that's in progress, it's fantastic, and it just gives you that little bit of buoyancy, to think, there's maybe the odd occasion where you're thinking, I'm just doing the same things, I'm not progressing anything, I'm not making the progress I thought I would want to make, I wonder why. And then you get an opportunity to catalogue it, even if it's just on a quarterly basis, and then you get to a situation where you're thinking, actually, wait a minute here, I'm actually doing fairly well. So it was great. And by the same token, it's not just all the stuff that we've accomplished, we also delved into some of the challenges that we've experienced personally and professionally during our quarter where we're not actively dialoguing. We do have a group text chat going on where we just update each other with articles or progress things and such. So yeah, mastermind number 2, as I say, it feels like we're making some progress here, folks, and I would encourage you, if you don't know how to set it up or you don't actually even know what I'm talking about, by all means get in touch and I'll walk and talk you through why I did it and the benefits that I'm hoping to get from that, and what this looks like as we move forward together. And then I've continued development on my course that's going to help you identify your internal and external blockers. I did start a series on Tuesday testimonials, which I've continued on LinkedIn, which is basically just kind of talking about some of the testimonials that I have published on my website, but going into a wee bit more depth and detail about the inference behind the words and such. So it's been good. And I did complete one of the business books that I just talked about there, and it's a book called Finally Find Freedom by a colleague from the mastermind community, actually, Philip Ride, and it talks about chains and metaphorical chains that hold you back from living your best life, and I'll talk about that just very briefly towards the end of this pod. And I do have an autobiography book called One Voice by a chap called David Holmes. And David Holmes is the former chairman of Rangers Football Club, which is, for folks that know me, know that's the club that I support from back home. And he talks about basically revolutionising Scottish football in the mid to late 1980s. And it's a fantastic book. I'm actually going to finish that book and then get David on as a guest to do a bit of an interview to help him basically publicise his book over here in North America. So hopefully I'll get that done at some point in May-ish time. So yeah, it's been quite busy. But anyway, on to the actual content for this episode, and I did want to go through blog number 16, which was entitled 5 Steps to Clear Definitions. And where this actually came from was I was progressing through a class online on holistic health, and what they basically meant by holistic health is not just your literal physical health. There's mental health, there's career health and such. Like there's a whole bunch of different facets to that. So using the holistic idea of basically your life and how healthy you are in each facet of your life. And this is done by Brendan Burchard on Growth Day, and it was almost, I wouldn't say a throwaway, but it certainly wasn't the topic of discussion, but the topic of clearly defining came up, and it honestly hit me like a bit of a sledgehammer. Now the caveat to that is I have never actually been hit by a sledgehammer, so it's a metaphorical. It's metaphorical only, but it was just the reason it resonated with me so much was that it's so fundamental. It's so basic. To your active ongoing ability to communicate and communicate effectively. But if you think about it, how crisply can you truly define exactly what it is, for example, that you want? How can you clearly define exactly what it is you need, you desire, you don't want, you don't need, you don't desire, from a particular situation to a degree that there is literally no room for ambiguity or misrepresentation or misunderstanding by yourself and or the recipient. It sounds easier than it is, I think. So that's what essentially inspired me to write this blog. So think about it. Think about a time when you had to explain something to someone. And an example here is, I want to be healthy. What does that mean? So it's going to mean different things to different people, of course. To some, it might be a reference to losing weight or meeting a target weight or a target of body fat, or being able to walk or run a certain distance, or related to your gut health or your skin health, or a change in diet to help with sleep patterns, or watching less TV or reading more or such. It's going to mean different things to different people. So your ability to be able to see how easily you can define could misalign with someone else's pretty quickly, leading to you literally not having the same conversation as you think you are. If you say, well, obviously I do want to be healthy, and someone immediately goes to weight loss and you're talking about running a marathon, then you're genuinely not having the same conversation. And the exact same principles will apply in both a personal and a business setting. For example, on a business side, it could be someone standing up and saying we need to become more efficient, and that can of course mean a whole plethora of things. And then you're dealing with existing process, existing culture, ego, feelings, groupthink, individual think, and resistance to change and such. And it's going to be the same somewhat on the personal side, as well. But your ability to clearly articulate and define exactly what it is you're talking about is going to give you either a fantastic opportunity to succeed or a whole world of hurt as you go forward. And that's essentially why I wrote the blog. So I do talk about a definition of defining, so if you pardon the poor English there, and I just said it's your ability to know and describe a topic involving a process of clearly outlining and explaining the meaning or boundaries of a concept, idea, or term. So if I know that's a bit of a mouthful to try and absorb, but your ability to know and describe a topic is probably the key part of that. And then I go on to talk about what defining clearly is not. And it's not being vague, it's not being ambiguous, it's not static. It can change, of course, and it's not just limited to words. There can be different ways to represent things, so you have the ability to define things a little bit clearer. And the benefits of defining well, you'll get clarity in your communication and your conversation, and your ability to understand if this is exactly what you want to do and if this is exactly the right thing to do at the right time and such. Accuracy in terms of the actual pointed details of what you're describing. Consistency, because you're talking about something that you have so much clarity and accuracy on that the message will continue to be consistent. Relevancy to the topic, you would hope to have that. And helpfulness, it's actually going to be helpful to be able to clearly articulate without any ambiguity attached to that. And what other benefits do you enjoy after you've done a good job of defining a subject well? It's going to be a time saver, isn't it? It's going to help either nurture or sustain or maintain healthy relationships with people, because people will say, I totally understand exactly what the concept is. I understand why it's important. I understand why it has to happen right now. I understand what's expected of me after this. And then you have that clarity that I just talked about as you go forward. There doesn't seem to be too many downsides. However, if you don't define poorly, now what you can do is simply change the items that I just mentioned in terms of clarity, accuracy, consistency, relevancy, helpfulness, positive relationships and such. And I added in the blog into ambiguity, which I think I just mentioned there as well. And then if you don't do a good job of defining something, you could complicate it, you could make it overly complex by either under or over explaining what that looks like, and completely losing the ability to be able to have that clarity. So some examples that are definitions that I used in the actual blog itself was, the examples of definitions was health, wealth, and success. Just 3 random topics that I picked, folks. You can pick any topic that you want, and then just start to clearly articulate what it is, to get to a strong, solid definition. So under the health one, I had fitness, I had nutrition, I had mental health, I had sleep. Not prescriptive at all, as I say, fairly random. Under wealth, we talked a bit about financial goals, about your investing, portfolio or attitude to investing, how you manage your debt, how you would manage your estate, and what does financial freedom mean to you. And then under success, a very broad and subjective word, of course. I talked about professional development, I talked about career growth, I talked about relationships, and it was just to give you a bit of an idea of how much depth of detail that I would typically go into to try and figure out the best way to define topics under each of those three main headings. And the key is really to actually give yourself the requisite amount of time that you need to be able to think about the topic, to understand the various parameters of said topic, and then what it actually means to you. If you don't understand it first, how you expected to have other people understand that? And then it gives you the best opportunity to essentially succeed in delivering on the messaging and subsequent plan of action if you want to do that, which is your intent of defining in the first place, if that is the case indeed. And then I go on to talk about 5 steps to definition clarity. And as I mentioned, it's really, really important. If you truly don't understand it to a point where you can explain it to someone, then you don't understand it well enough. You then have to go do a bit more work, essentially, to get yourself to that level of understanding so that you can then convey and define that to other people. And one of the caveats I put in the blog there, I just wanted, it's kind of twofold. One would be, if you don't understand it enough, cut down on the negative self-talk, whatever it is you would say to yourself, to kind of run yourself down or in some way berate yourself. And by the same token, also don't be so hard on others who can't or don't seem able to fully absorb your message as you intended it to. You could just have used a different type and style of language. You could maybe have operated at a level that was just a wee bit above their level of acknowledgement and understanding, or it's too rudimentary and they kind of switched off, or the conditions for conveying the message weren't quite conducive to giving you the best opportunity. But the key part of this is, don't be so hard on yourself and don't be so hard on others. If you don't understand it, that's more information that you have, and the information you have is that you need more information to be able to understand it better. And then as you're conveying it, if it's not landing with your audience, get curious and find out why, and don't just assume that they're stupid, that they are incoherent, that they have zero cognitive ability to understand anything at a complex nature or anything like that. That's not fair, and it's most likely not true either. So the 5 steps to definition clarity, the first one being simplify your language. You don't need to prove how smart you are, and just be, as I mentioned there, hyper vigilant on how your messaging is landing with the audience, using the medium that you're using. If it's uncomfortable silences over the phone, or silences, it doesn't have to be uncomfortable, over the phone, if it's looking at someone on a screen, if it's delivering it face to face, if it's a hybrid of kind of all 3 of those things, just make sure that you have an accommodation in there that you can see what the reaction is real time from your audience, and then you can make adjustments based on that. But using simplified language will help you drive your point home a lot easier. The second one was providing context and analogies. And ones that actually resonate with the audience can become so powerful, because that's what people will genuinely remember. They might not remember some of the terminology, some of the acronyms, some of the process steps, but they'll remember the stories that are attached to those that aids their cognition of the actual topic that you're trying to convey. The third one is using visual aids and examples. And basically whatever you can use, it helps break things up. It helps enhance the comprehension for the recipient of the information, and it helps their understanding and retention, for the topic that you're explaining to them. And if you don't know, in advance what's going to happen, or what's needed to be able to have an audience, receive a message in the way that it's intended to be received, just ask. I'm going to do some visual stuff. Is that going to work? Well, not really, because not everyone has access to a computer. It's too far away. The room's too big. The equipment doesn't work. It's not something that we've had success with before. You'll have more information then. Number 4 is interactive learning tools, and this basically helps relieve the boredom of the audience, gives them a wee bit of an opportunity to participate, and it, quite honestly, it forces you to consider your audience early in the process to say, will this work? Will this enhance their experience? Will this enhance their engagement and their cognitive ability to understand what it is I'm trying to do? So early, the audience becomes a key factor in your definition as you're moving forward. And then number 5 was encourage questions and discussion from whomever you're trying to define your topic or subject to. Silence absolutely is not always golden when trying to clearly define a topic. Seek the feedback and seek it often. Let your audience know in advance. This is an interactive session, and this is something that they're going to have to come, without a multitasking, sort of mindset. And again, consider in advance how you're going to capture and use that feedback. Are you going to have a parking lot? Are you going to have a flip chart or something to capture it? Someone taking notes for you or something like that, so that it's not lost. So that when someone has said something, you can say, I hear you, and then you have an opportunity to follow up either real time or kind of near term after the fact. And then I go on at the end to talk about, this takes practice, folks. So if you've experienced some hardship with this in the past, it takes an honest, open assessment of you, to be able to give yourself the best opportunity to clearly define as you move forward. And you're going to have to practice, and it's not one size fits all, and one audience will react different than another audience and such. But one thing you might want to think about is having an accountability partner, someone that you can bounce these ideas off of, whether it's in a mastermind like I talked about a little bit earlier, or some other vehicle that you have that will give you the ability to practice. It will give you the ability to actually hear how your message sounds when you're trying to define it, and it gives you the opportunity to seek early feedback, before you actually go kind of more public, if that's what you're planning to do. And then I finished off the blog with the Coach Gaz challenge, and that was essentially to consider a goal or an aspect of your life that you need to clearly define to another party. Doesn't matter who the other party is, and then walk through the 5-step process that I just listed to provide you a deeper level of thinking about how you're actually going to go and do this, and how it's going to work in terms of simplified language, the context and analogies, any visual aids or examples you're going to use, the way you're going to interact with your audience, and how you're going to capture and answer any questions that come your way. I would really encourage you to do that, folks, and get back to me and let me know how it goes. And if there's anything I can do to help you out on that, even if you want me to be your accountability partner, I can't do it all the time, but I would certainly be willing to do it as a one-off. So by all means, get in touch if that's an area of focus for you. So on to a very brief book review. It's been a wee while since I've had an opportunity to do a book review. Well, I guess maybe a couple of episodes. I can't actually remember now. But it's called Finally Find Freedom, and part of this online community called Mastermind. And I came across this fellow by the name of Philip Ride, and he had put together this book of Finally Find Freedom. He was kind of advertising it on a community, and I thought, you know what, it'd be nice to support someone in the community, and it's actually a topic that's quite intriguing and interesting to me. So it's essentially, as I mentioned at the top of the show here, the basis is there are chains that will inconvenience you, that will hold you back in your life, and then you just need an opportunity to be able to figure out the best way to break those chains. What he does is he starts off with what he calls the TALE quadrant, and TALE being TALE, and that stands for time. What do you want to be doing with your time? Activities, what is it you actually want to do? What excites you? What brings you joy? What makes you smile? The location, where do you actually want to do these activities? Where do you want to live? What type and style of home do you want to have? And then the experiences, what would you like to experience if time and money weren't a concern? And then you have this grid, and this is all this is all reflective, this is aspirational. The aspirations that you're looking to try and get, aspirational aspirations, listen to me. But when you go through the time, the activities, the location, the experiences, it gives you your opportunity to say, this is where I would like to go at some point. This is what I'd like to be doing. This is what I'd like to be experiencing and such. And then it's a good way to start the book. But ultimately, it's the tail part is the what. It's not so much the how. And then it goes on to go through the various chains and things that might materially impact your ability to actually succeed. So I'll go through the chains here fairly quickly. The first one is knowledge, the knowledge that you do and don't have. And does it help move you forward? Does it help you unlock something? Does it help you change perspectives? Number two is speed, and our relationships basically with how fast or slow something takes to get done. Number three is convenience. Falling into the trap of choosing convenience over growth is an area that he spends some time talking about. Number four is relationships, and the relationships that fuel us and the relationships that drain us. Number five is priorities, the priorities, our own priorities, and the ones that are given to us via external parties or such. Number seven is location. Where do you need to be for the maximum impact? Number eight is time, how and where you want to spend your time. Number nine is risk, being proactive and clear about the risks that you're introducing to a certain part of your life by taking a particular action. Number 10 is fear, the image of a negative reaction that we might get if we were to take a particular course of action. Number 11 is perception, the perception we have of other people and other things, and the perception that we believe other people have about us and how accurate those actually are. And the 12th and final one is pressure, the pressure we put on ourselves and the pressure that we let other people put on us. And I love that inference, in terms of that we allow other people to put on us. And then there's basically three buckets, if you like, three types of chains within the 12 there. So 1 to 4 is self-directed, and they're basically from inside us. And numbers 5 to 8, which starts with priorities through to time, are externally influenced. And then 9 to 12, from risk through to pressure, is mental images that we construct to be able to give ourselves the opportunity to experience what we experience with each of these things. And of course that was risk, fear, perception and pressure. So then he goes on to talk about breaking the chains, the metaphorical breaking these things that are shackling you. And step number 1 is to assess, to basically ascertain your current situation and how that's serving you or not. Step number 2 is then understand, our way of being, what does and doesn't work for us. Number 3 is then introduce new habits, new patterns, new behaviours that will serve you, and that might mean what a new habit is to get rid of an old habit. You're creating something in replacement of something else. And step number 4 is then repeat. Try things, give them some time, understand the structures that are going to work for you, the structures that aren't going to work for you, and make some course corrections based on that. So there, yeah, and it goes on. One part I did also want to talk about briefly. There's some other great stuff towards the end, a bit of a mishmash of musings and other helpful things that he talks about. But one of the key areas he has, the book is called Finally Find Freedom, and at the end he puts together freedom as I don't know if it is an anagram or I can't remember. There was a word that he used in there, but basically he creates the word or a series of words as proportion to each of the letters in freedom. And the first one is focused, repetition, enables, experiences, desires, opportunities, and money. And he has that in a sentence, a little bit almost like a mantra towards the end. So something that a very good way to kind of round off all of the lessons. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It's not a long read at all. It did take me quite a while to get through it, just because I was prioritising other things. But Philip did a great job of it, and I would thoroughly recommend. It's called Finally Find Freedom, and it's just a little bit of a different slant. Starting with the tail grid, and then really working through the chains analogy and such was was quite powerful, and something that I would certainly take forward in my own life assessment and living, and the ability to maybe even talk to other people, clients and such, through that as well. So well done, Phil. Good for you for doing that. Okie dokie, my friends, I hope this episode of the Best You, a Coaching Podcast, was a valuable use of your time, and that you will absolutely join me for more as we move it forward together. If you did find it valuable, please do share it with at least one more person to continue to help build our community of like-minded progressive folks from around the globe. That's the plan anyway. And I'm going to ask you once again, have you actually shared it with someone? If not, why not? Come on, please, let's do that. That's the only way that we're going to build things up here. Don't forget to take a peek at garygillen.com. There's all the back episodes of the Best You, a Coaching Podcast. All the blogs and such are there, and some information about the services I offer, coaching in general and such. And until next time, please do take care of yourself and continue to invest in what you're investing in to get yourself to being the best you. And I will talk to you soon. Okay, take care. Cheerio now.